Hello and welcome everyone to another podcast, Emergence of Being. And today we are diving into shadow and diving in by diving out. We're going to be talking about how whatever bugs you is actually a spotlight to look where you're doing that inside.
Yeah, always an interesting one. There's so many nuggets in life, I guess. Ways to learn, should I say?
Yeah. And if you're watching this on a replay, take a moment, share the video. We're giving people just a minute to tune in. And I'm also sharing this to Facebook now no longer allows you to stream directly to groups. So where we have been streaming in the holistic health and healing group, I have to actually share the link. So I'm going to do that now too. So hopefully some of our regular friends that watch there can come over and, see our stream today. So I'm just doing that real quick.
Oh, the algorithms and how technology changes day to day, guys. So bear with us. We're gonna do the little tech stuff so that we can
Yeah.
have everything flowing smoothly and nicely. And people are like, where do we
Yeah.
find everybody?
Yep, and we're also streaming on Instagram. So if you're watching on Instagram, I can see your comments, but I can't bring them up. So if you do want to interact where we can actually bring up your comment, you can hop over to Facebook or YouTube and you can comment there, or you can still comment. I can read it. I'm not able to bring up the comment directly.
Yeah,
So,
we can just read it aloud. We just
yeah.
People have to listen a little more closely to know. All right, so where shall we start? So people reflect to us what's going on inside. So it's almost like a mirror. Whatever we talked about this last time, you attract. Our last session was all about you attract what you are, not what you want. So you want a car, you want a new job, you want some more money, you want whatever, yada, yada, whatever you want. You want a new relationship, you want some things to go away, but you're going to attract to you what's going on inside you. And those are different pieces and parts. It's not often just one thing. You could have some anger, you could have some sadness, some different things that are going on, and you will notice that those people start showing up in your life. So always interesting. So always be in awareness of when somebody new pops up, whether, and I just maybe had a little, I think I may have had a little experience with that. But people will pop up that represent something that's often what's representing something that's going on inside of you. And that can be on all sorts of levels. If you're a very loving person, you may attract very loving people too. So it's not just one thing, but look at all the different people that are showing up in your life and what are they teaching?
Yeah, and then a lot of the truths are paradoxes, like birds of a feather flock together, or like attracts like. That's like an absolute truth. Opposites attract is a duality truth. So like you where are you actually creating from? Because if you're putting out that you want something, maybe the opposite shows up first. Or you say you really want Mr. and Mrs. Right, but you can only bring to yourself where you're actually vibrating at. So maybe you're bringing someone that's in dealing with the same shadow material that you are, because they're helping to demonstrate to you a better vision of where you're actually at. So it's kind of like every time you're getting angry at something or noticing something about someone gossiping or being resentful or brooding or whatever the case is, be like, where do I do that?
Yes, very good question. Where do I do that? So if you gossip and you're attracting a lot of gossipy people, if you're on chaos, you will attract chaos. If there's a lot of chaotic stuff within you, watch how that starts to show up in your environment with people, places. I have tons of examples to give. So, but go ahead.
Hey. No, you can give your example. I'd rather use your examples than my examples.
Why? Yours aren't exciting?
No, well, my thought is going to be is if you are going through a particularly stressful time in your life, you might attract two different things to you. One thing might be someone who is reflecting you the mess, because if you're in the mess, sometimes it's really hard to see. And all of a sudden you're seeing somebody that is in the same situation as you, or there's a resonance, and maybe call it a trauma bond or a trauma flame or whatever the case is. You have somebody that has a real similar vibe as what you're experiencing. But then also to kind of guide you out of that, maybe you have the opposite show up. So you have somebody that is literally the space of grace, or maybe you already have the space of grace and you attract the chaos. you usually will have 2 points because all of our experiences is about contrast. So you typically will have somewhere in your life a little bit of each.
Yes, yes, you will have a little bit of each. So if you're distrustful, if you're for relationships, because that's always a hot topic, if you are looking to attract Mr. or Mrs. Right, but inside you maybe were cheated on and you don't trust, and you really don't trust, and you haven't quite healed that, gotten over it to a certain level, then watch how you're going to attract men or women that kind of don't text you back. You don't know what's going on. You feel something's fishy. So it's really important to, I always say, work on yourself first. So it's not even necessarily even people. I say people, places, environments that are mirroring to you something inside you that needs some introspection. So looking inside you and watching what's going on the outside of you, because your external world is a reflection. It's almost like a mirror of what's going on internally. So it's a gift and sense of telling you, showing you what you may need to work on. And life is a journey. And once we're done with those sorts of things, then we transition out of here. But we are working on all sorts of parts and pieces at all times to up level to the next level. So it never really ends, so to speak. But look inside, look at your external environment, your people, places, situations that you're in. They are mirroring and showing you something that may need a little work, or we always need a little contrast, the yin and the yang. So it may be giving you something good to reflect, to propel your energy into a certain space.
Very good. And guys, you feel free to ask questions or make comments. I see a couple people on Instagram. We have a couple people here on Facebook and YouTube. So feel free, if you have questions, to ask them. The one place where I found, I wish I had, do I have a whiteboard ability? No, I don't know. I'm not going to try to mess with that for the first time. I should play around and see how I could do it. But there's Carl Jung, who he had this like little diagram of a circle, which represents like your whole self, and a line going across the top, which represents your consciousness and your other than conscious. And then he had the shadow, and he had these little arrows going out of the shadow, and then little stick figures on the top, that everything that is other than conscious, everything that's unconscious, it's playing out in the things that are around you. Like in a sense, like if you consider all of creation is within you, everything you're experiencing is a projection and personification of little different aspects of you, combinations of things and whatnot. And so really everything good, bad, and ugly. The question is, where does that live within me? And more interestingly, why is it showing up now? Why am I noticing it? Like, what is it about this right now that I can actually take and look back at myself and ask the question, what's up? Like, why is it showing up? Because, you, in that sense, like if you're getting a lot of negative things, well, what do I really need to elevate and heal? Where do I have a shadow imprint that needs to be patched, if you want to consider it that way? Or do I have a gift and I have the opportunity to offer medicine, and I'm evolving myself through helping someone else? So it's like internal and external. There's always this two-part type of thing when you're looking at the shadow. It might be your work, but your work might be, I've healed from this and now it's showing up again. And maybe it's because there's a deeper knowing, a deeper understanding, and me elevating by now helping someone, an aspect of me that is going through it again or two.
Yeah, and life is not happening to you, it is happening for you.
Yeah, and we do have a question on Instagram. Once Upon an
Okay.
Oracle was asking, well, what skills can you use to trust in ourselves? Because part of this, when you're in the thick of it and things are showing up, it could be kind of demoralizing, So like, how do you have like
Oh my
trust?
goodness.
We just got attacked by a cat. That was a
Okay.
catastrophe.
Anyway, go ahead. Interrupted Hanks.
No, well, and I'm also noticing there is about maybe a 30-second or so delay on the Instagram. Like I'm seeing like the cat thing just happened now. So, so if you're asking questions on Instagram, know that we are a little bit delayed. But Once Upon an Oracle asks, what skills can we use to rebuild our trust in ourselves? And part of that is like, if you are in the thick of it and thick of a mess, and you're drawing someone to you, and you're getting like hammered with even more guilt or more gossiping or more toxic shame or whatever the case is, like, how do you start to build trust in yourself to move through it? and build trust in yourself that it's showing up for a purpose, and start to do the actual work instead of being in the muck, doing the work to trust yourself and get out of it and elevate. So I kind of added a little bit to the question. I hope that's okay.
Yeah, I think the first thing, and I think the true key in life is to become the observer. Because remember, you are not the body, you are not the emotions, you are not the thoughts. You are actually an energetic being. We're just using the body, the thoughts, the emotions as vehicles. So the first thing is to really become the observer and get good at that, and noticing yourself in these situations. So it's kind of pulling yourself out and going, looking around like you're watching cars go by and go, oh, that's interesting. And that's interesting. And then asking the question of, what is this trying to show me? And sitting quietly with that. And you will get an answer, and not feeling like you have to tackle everything all at once, because then you get into overwhelm of, is this me? Am I trusting me? Am I trusting? Is this the right situation? Is this trying? Then you're starting to get in the mind. And so the only way to really get there, I think, is to get in stillness and remembering who you truly are above and beyond these thoughts that come up and start to drive us crazy. I answered that. Okay.
Yeah, and the thing that came to me to offer with that too is like, look at what brought you to the place that you are. Like, I was a professional drinker for many years. I 100% created based on what I chose. I was a very good alcoholic. You know, I mean, it's so like, trust and know, like, if you are in a place of toxicity or a place of not feeling good about where you're at, like, really evaluate what choices did you make. And I know it seems kind of weird, but know that, you know, you got 100% the cause and effect of whatever you chose. And so when you start choosing on the positive side, have trust that you're that good of a creator to create a positive experience too. So, you know, we're very powerful creators, and everything that's showing up is 100% a result of the things that we chose consciously and unconsciously. And owning that can build confidence in, now when I'm choosing things that I feel are lighter, that I deserve the good stuff that's going to show up too.
Totally. A couple of things just come up thinking on that. Your soul's destiny is somewhat predetermined, but the manifestation is what happens in between of all that. So you came here with a purpose. There is something that I think it's like called the Akashic records or whatever, have to go through to learn, so you can kind of go on to the next. But in between, there's all this navigation, and you are the architect, and you can create a lot of those experiences. A lot of what's been coming up lately for me is like, I think about somebody, and then like a couple of days later they call. So be really aware of how quickly your thoughts go out there and start creating things. So if you think about something they call, you better believe everything else that you're thinking, fixating on is creating your reality. You really are the architect and the manufacturer of the experience of life that you have, and you can turn that around instantaneously. But sometimes I think we get stuck. We get stuck in a pattern of thinking and a fixation of, it's almost an addiction. Addictions don't have to be alcohol or drugs or sex. We can have very addictive thought patterns because they give us something. They give us some sort of control or some sort of kickback. So,
Well, for sure. And there's a book called Existential Kink. And in this book, it talks about how we subconsciously create things that we really like. We say we don't like them, but we really like them. And they give the example in the book of, like, say I like to be taken care of. I could be a total F up. So I have to be humbled and go to my parents and be like, hey, can you help me out here? So like, maybe the unconscious thing and desire of the soul is like, hey, I want to be taken care of. And like, when you start looking at the patterns in your life of what's showing up and what you're creating unconsciously, the question then becomes, well, how do I create that consciously? And one good way to find that stuff is, what are you judging in other people? Because if you're judging other people like, oh, they always are screwing this up, they're screwing that up, that, you know, this is the third time they've had to go live back with their parents or whatever. Well, like, where are you maybe wanting, you know, doing the same type of thing and catching yourself in a little loop where you choose the same thing over and over again, and creating unconsciously instead of consciously. And that's where the magic really starts to happen, especially in the author of this book, like giving examples of how to start consciously creating. It's like really mind blowing and really humbling when you realize, wow, I might actually like the weird stuff that I'm creating and the toxicity or the shame or whatever it is.
My
And
goodness. I have no idea what's going on today, guys. I apologize. I should have locked them up. I knew I should have.
I think it's good. It's really fun.
Oh, um,
There was someone
yeah.
laughing at that in the comments on Instagram, laughing at the cat. And my apologies. We did have a
Photobomb.
couple people saying good morning on
Good
Facebook
morning.
and on YouTube, and another one on YouTube. And we had Mary Lee just talking on. I'm not sure if you have a question about numerology, if you want to expand on that, or if this is something. I'm not sure where you want to go with the numerology comment, but if you want to give us a little bit more context, we can. We can definitely go down the route of numerology. And then Karen saying it's an action podcast. Laugh out. It
It is.
definitely is.
It's a photobomb podcast. Thanks, Karen.
No, I really think the cat's showing up is just perfect. So don't worry.
It's always, everything's always perfect. But judgment is a really, that's a really great nugget because we judge so much. I gave this exercise a couple podcasts ago. Try to go 24 hours without judging anything, without judging yourself, without the mind goes there. It just goes there. You walk down the street and you're like, what is that neighbor doing? Or you're at the grocery store. Look at that person's cart, or they're buying Doritos. It just happens that there's so much. So that kind of shows you inside of what's going on. And beware of really extreme judgment, because if you're extremely judging somebody else, then there's a lot of work to do inside. We do not know what's good for somebody else. Transformation, as Hank and I, as coaches, as mentors, we can only guide. The transformation happens based on your own soul's existence and what you need to learn. We are simply guides. We are not the saviors. We are the guides. And there's reasons, when we do healings or we do clearings and those sorts of things, there's a reason why people don't get better, because there's certain things that they have to go through. You grow through what you go through. And so we're here for growth in that respect. So I just went off on a little bit of a tangent, but yeah.
And Mary Lee was offering with numerology that it can tell you what you came here to do and to be. And there's a way that you take your name and you can break the numbers down with numerology. And then that tells you like what number you are. It's like I want to use the word life path. I'm not really familiar with numerology to give a lot of context around it. I got one numerology reading once and it was spot on. She retired though. Otherwise I tell people, go get this numerology reading. They're phenomenal. But it does give you a lot of good information. And then everybody's also born in metaphysics. There is an idea of like the 7 rays, and you have like one skilled ray, and all these things give you like little hints and things of the theme of your life. And a theme, just to give you an example, a theme might be to be a healer or a helper or a musician or a landscaper. Like you might have a theme of what you want to experience, like beautifying the earth, let's call it that, instead of landscaper. And there may be different layers or octaves of that destiny. So if you came here to feed people, you could do that as a homemaker. You could do that as a 3-star, 4-star, 5-star chef, owning your own restaurant, having a hot dog cart, having a soup kitchen in the city, having a nonprofit that supports a soup kitchen in every major city in the country, and so on. So like whatever the destiny is, that's the theme. And that's one reason why people get a little bit confused, because they'll get something and they'll be really excited about it and they dive in, right? And then all of a sudden something else comes along, might be the same theme, and now this new thing's exciting and they jump to do that. And they start jumping around, and it may all be the same theme, but then if you just continue to move forward with just one thing, you can go deeper. And I like the analogy of like, let the cream settle, meaning like let the cream rise to the top, the benefit of sticking with something for a little bit. So you do the work, it's fun, and instead of jumping around, which we have a tendency to do because, we're human, and like stay the course a little bit to actually let it take root, become fruitful, reap the fruits, and then go do something fun. But if you're always going the same direction with everything you're creating, it's going to continue to be the evolution. So don't just keep skimming the surface on the next thing that's fun, but don't go deeper. Make sense?
Yep. Go deep, not wide. So don't go all over the place. We get attracted to all sorts of new shiny things because that is the evolution of how this world is going. It's the new phone, it's the new computers. We're always attracted. I'm not saying you don't need to get a new computer, you do, because technology does change. But with regards to doing the work, the internal work, stay with a mentor for a while versus switching to somebody else really quickly. That could be a thought within a month or so, because everybody's got a different set of tools and everybody will bring something new to you, but going deeper and making sure you fully absorb those teachings, and you will know when your sponge, so to speak, is saturated, because you'll absorb, you'll be like more, and then you'll come to a point where you're like, okay, you'll just know when the sponge is saturated. So yeah, always like skimming and jumping around is not necessarily. I think if you're using it as a learning tool, then stick with one thing. But sometimes I think I have to comment and say that sometimes somebody else will state things in a different way that makes sense. So I'll give you the example of like school. So I had like this physics teacher, and I was like, it was this Indian guy, and I was like, I just do not understand. Like, I don't get it. And then I ended up going to another's, like, I think I dropped out of that class and I went to a different college to get the physics that I needed to move on. And I will never forget, that teacher just made it so simple. And I'm like, I get it now, because somebody may state something a different way and then you get it. So it's kind of one of those things, I guess, but stick with one thing versus jumping around too much with a bunch of different ideas.
Yeah, or like staying really in your awareness is the big thing, because it might be like I learned so many different modalities, and people kept saying like pick one thing. I'm like, no, at that point in time I was supposed to learn a whole bunch of things, and I have like a huge knowledge base of a whole bunch of different things, but my depth of knowledge is in like the Papakuna tradition of Peru and sound healing. So I had my things that I deepened, but I learned a lot of broad-based things too. So like it's not a wrongness to learn a lot, but what you want to make sure you do is in some things have a deepening and let the cream settle to the top, become an expert in a sense, but allow yourself the freedom to learn more and things like that. And we had I don't know if you know stuff about crystal skulls. Someone's asking if there's going to be a future live and activating crystal skulls. I could possibly do that. I don't know if Dr. K will want to join me for crystal skull stuff, but
I don't know anything about it.
And so we that will probably be what I can do on a Coffee Connect one day. So stay tuned. And I do have on my website, on my YouTube, if you look at Crystal Skulls, I have past lives with Crystal Skulls on my site, and also the Goddess Elite YouTube, if you want to check that out. And they were also saying that they also had that in school. I'm not sure which thing, because I know there's a delay. So, but someone is resonating with one of the things that they learned in school. And Mary Lee actually teaches numerology. So if anybody is interested in numerology breakdown, you can reach out to Mary Lee. She's commenting on my personal Facebook profile. If you want to go to Hank Sutala and look at comments, you can find Mary Lee and reach out if you're interested in numerology, because I know nothing about numerology other than master numbers like 111 through 999. Like I use them as tuning fork frequencies for healing purposes and helping with growth and ascension and all that kind of stuff. So if you want a tuning fork numerology session, I could totally hook you up, and stay tuned for more. Oh, that was just me making a pun.
Yeah, I know the same. Watch for repeating numbers. But that's how I learned about it years and years ago. Just certain numbers start showing up. And that's the frequency you're also tuning into. So it's kind of not a double-edged sword, but it just kind of, that's the frequency you may be tuning into. But what you seek, you're going to start seeing more of it. So example, if you're like, I really think I want to buy a Toyota Camry, and it's like percolating, and like you keep thinking about it, all of a sudden you're going to start seeing Toyota Camrys everywhere, because it's kind of how the mind works and pulls it in. So again, it's your thought process and the things that you focus on. You're going to start seeing that all over the place to pull that in. So be aware of those sorts of things. So
that's Neil Donald Walsh gives that as an example too. It's like once you buy a new car, say like when we got our Honda Odyssey, and it's a black Honda Odyssey, we saw Hondas everywhere. Not did we just see Hondas everywhere, it was always a black Honda. And just like 6 months ago, I was like, have you ever actually seen a Honda Odyssey that wasn't black, and then after that we started seeing those everywhere. So it's like really like energy flows where your attention goes, and just
Yeah.
that little example of the car is so great. And like, so if you're thinking, oh, I suck, you're going to start seeing places where you're having self-judgment. And Bruce Lee had a great comment. He's like, never speak ill of yourself, not even jokingly, because the body doesn't know the difference. So like
Yes.
really like
Totally.
think twice about putting yourself in some sort of negative context. And at the beginning, that could be really difficult. You may have to really work. Like when I had my mantra, self-pity and gratitude cannot coexist, I was just always negative, and I started having to do these word games where I would put things in a positive spin. Even if I didn't believe it, I did it anyway. And it took about a year to really have a shift.
Yeah, that's such a good nugget too. Both of those pieces, even talking about the shadow self and the things that you say to yourself. I'm so effing stupid. I'm what a dumbass. Your mind does not know, your consciousness does not know the difference. So when you say that, it takes that as for word, and you will start seeing more. Then you start seeing more places where you do that. So say something like, if you want to soften it before you get to the other levels, silly me, that could be a little more fun to say. So it's all a game. Like it is all a game. If you can
Mhm.
find different ways, like when the bills come in, find a game to play around that, because when you see the bills, it's like, your nervous system starts going into overload and freaking out. Versus, I was just on a podcast listening to somebody that called it, Kate Northrup called it invoices for blessings already received. And I'm like, that is really good. I really like that. Or pretend that it's checks that are coming in. Oh, I've got a check for $47. Oh, I got a check for $1,000, and then multiply that. If you can create a game, you're going to trick the mind, because the mind does not, the consciousness doesn't know the difference. So if you propel the feeling of fear, then that's a focus on fear. If you're going to see it as an invoice for a blessing that you got, see the way that changes the energy around something. You're not going to perceive it that way. So it's all a game. Life is
Mhm.
such a game. It's truly a
And
mental game.
the person that was saying they had that in school also, it was actually an art tutor that kept throwing shade or shadow, actually complaining that their artwork was better than theirs. And that is something that we run into a lot. You might have somebody and they're putting you down, and that might be your shadow of self-judgment for something, and it's showing up as somebody putting you down. Then maybe you choose not to be an artist. Like I had a really difficult art experience where I have a really hard time. I would actually be in tears trying to do something creative, because I just was so put down with creativity at a certain point in my life that when I went to do an art project, I mean, it was hardcore. It was like a bomb was going off inside me. It was really difficult to work through, but I did it. And so, like, when you have an aversion to something, those are the greatest times. Like, okay, I'm being really triggered. I'm going into fight or flight or freeze or fawn. And what's up with that? Where in me is my nervous system having a flashback to a prior time, and I'm starting to go into reaction mode. And it may take a while to unpack it, but it's worth the time to unpack and look at the things that are most triggering for you, because that's where the most work can be done. Because if you didn't have the work to be done, it wouldn't even be a blip on the radar.
Exactly. It is all about the past and a impact that something made. And it could be something so trivial, like you lost your little teddy bear or something and you cried. But your mind, when there's any kind of familiar situation in your adulthood that re-triggers that trauma because you didn't allow or process that trauma, then the mind will take you right back to that trauma or the feeling of that trauma. So anything that's familiar, you will be reminded of, and then we roll with that program. But yet we're so unconscious to it. So it's bringing consciousness to that, asking the question, just like Hank mentioned, going, okay, where did I have this situation again? And then allowing yourself to process that, because a lot of times we may have had to shove something down. Like my example, when my mother passed away when I was 11, I had to sit there at the funeral home, and I was kind of numb, but I don't think I processed all that. So it took me a while to process those emotions of grief, rather than feeling like I have to be really strong here and I can't shed a tear. When I was trying to process that, but I didn't want anybody to know that I was trying to process that. So I shoved it down. So it's all those past emotions that we do not allow ourselves to process fully then get re-triggered in adulthood. And then so going back and really, like Hank said, to do that work, because it's worth it. Because once you allow yourself to process it, the nervous system calms down and you don't get so triggered in the future.
Yep. And this comment, we're going to focus on the mental part of it. They were saying that people say punch, beat you, it will heal over time, like physical things, but mental abuse cannot heal sometimes. And even being physically beaten or physically abused, that can cause a huge mental effect. And what Zane would say, like, who's one of my teacher in the Pakokuna tradition, it's not necessarily about healing fully the imprint. It's more about learning to navigate it, because the imprint's the imprint, and it is there. Those things are there to give you contrast for you to have your contextual experience. And so what might have triggered you, and you might be reactionary, or you might have cowered or hid in the closet when somebody says something to you in a certain way that causes you to regress from when your dad yelled at you, just for an example. But like when you notice that, now when that same thing happens and you're aware that you're in a flashback, you can choose differently. So instead of going into reaction, it creates a little bit of space when those situations come up. And instead of reacting to that shadow aspect, you are now going, I know what's going on. And instead of running to the closet, maybe you stand in your power, and you would never know what it was like to stand in your power had that imprint not been part of your past experience. And it all becomes like, now I know what it is to be powerful, to stand up for myself, or to stand up for somebody else, or whatever the case is. So like it's about navigating those imprints and the shadow.
For sure. Because we're all, like I said, we all, some of our soul is predetermined in what we need to come into this existence to learn and experience, so that we can take that and move on to whatever next experience that is. So if in this lifetime you need to learn how to love yourself more, then there's going to be a lot of experiences where you will need to be challenged to do that and to create the contrast for that. Because if we already knew what our Stuart Wilde has wonderful books talking about this, like We Were Not Meant to Struggle. But if we already knew what our predetermination was when we came, we would seek out those experiences in a very formatted fashion to try to heal them. Meaning, if you knew, okay, I'm coming in this lifetime to be less angry, then we would start saying, oh my gosh, I am so sorry. Okay.
That's great.
Never happened. If we were here to talk about angry, this is mojo. If you came into this experience to learn how to be less angry because somewhere in a past experience you were a really angry person, then you will, if you already knew that, then you would start, like, the radar would be all over the place to try to find certain experiences to do that. Then you'd miss out on different tools and navigation. So we don't come in with that knowledge. Our soul knows that knowledge, but our consciousness, our body, our like physical mind doesn't know that. So yeah, it's learning how to navigate it when these things come, so that then you're like, oh, check box, I have learned. So when this pops up again, it's not so bad. I know how to do this. I know how to handle this.
Yeah, and then those past experiences really can turn into medicine for the soul. So like a lot of the things that I experienced, that has been instrumental in helping people that come to me for healing work and different things like that, because I have a tendency to draw to me people who have addictions, like, because I'm a retired professional alcoholic, and so like a lot of the things that I had gone through that I have healed from, I have that medicine to offer. And then that's part of my positive expression and contrasting of it, is to be able to help other people through similar things.
Yeah, what you learn here, then you help walk. My mojo is always, we're all here to walk each other through these roads of life and walk each other home. So if you've learned and mastered something, you can give now somebody a hand to pull them out and help them master it. You're not saving them, you are guiding them and giving them tools to learn it themselves. And then once they learn it, you know what? They're going to help a lot of other people. And that's why I changed my name to One Ripple Effect, as you see at the bottom, because it's changing that one thing or two things in your life that's going to change everything. And when you change, you help other people change. And when they change, they help other people change. So it's part of consciousness and helping others along the way too, and paying it forward on this mystery school we're in that has all sorts of twists and turns. And if you can lighten up around that versus sitting in the seriousness of it, which we are all working on, then everything becomes easier. If you make everything a game, the game of life, like Florence Scovel Shinn has a wonderful book called, oh my gosh, she's gonna again. She has a great book called, what is The Game of Life and How to Play It. And it's a wonderful book. I love that book. She has a
It is a phenomenal book. It's a whole bunch of, if I remember, it's a whole bunch of little short stories, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah,
and then
yeah, we had that was required reading when I went to my school at fellowships in between year 1, 2. That was our summer reading, and we had it was part of our seminar work. We had to read that book. It's really good.
Yeah,
I should revisit that book. We should do maybe a book group on that book. That would be good.
Life is a game, and if you can learn to see it as a game, then it takes a lot of pressure out of it. Mr. Bean, what movie was he in? I'm trying to remember, or is it just Mr. Bean?
I think that was like shorter skits and things, and then there was a whole movie.
But Mr. Bean, if you guys know Mr. Bean, he was always, this, but he looked at everything as something completely new. There was no registration of a past experience. Oh, a piece of paper. What do I do with this? Everything, if you can learn to see life that way versus everything being a tragedy, it does take the sting out of it. So that I try to do that. Like, okay, I don't prefer this situation, but let's put Mr. Bean, do a Mr. Bean on it. How interesting. What am I going to learn out of this thing? And it's always, everything's taking you to the next step, to bring you to where you are now. So all your experiences that have happened have brought you to where you are now. We may not prefer them, but we can't learn if we don't go through these things that bring us to the space that we are in, and the rest is going to keep taking us to the next step of evolution. So it's part of the process.
And if you don't resonate with the Mr. Bean analogy, there's a movie called 50 First Dates where Drew Barrymore every day wakes up and doesn't remember anything from the past. It's like it's a brand new day, and it's a really good example of staying in the moment and not referencing the past for data. That's the ego doing that. It always wants to go to the past and compare everything and go, oh, don't do that again. But you want to be able to touch into that future possibility and act on your heart and what your heart's leading you to instead of the head. And
I don't know. Would that be good if we woke up and just did not remember the days previous and every day was a new day? I don't know. There'd be no contrast. Everything would be exciting, I guess.
Right. Well, I'm not saying you want to the idea is that each day it's brand new.
It is.
Look at Groundhog Day.
It is.
Each day was brand new. You can make that experience, and I don't know. Yeah, but Judy was saying that's an inspiring idea, and yeah, it's really about staying in the moment. Because
the past is gone, guys. So yesterday's gone. Whatever happened yesterday, you will not re-experience that anywhere but in your mind. Yeah. There's the only place we re-experience the pain, the anguish is in your head. Yesterday is gone. It is always now. It is always now. The future isn't here yet. We worry about the future. There's a whole saying of if you live in the past, you're in depression. If you're living in the future, you're in anxiety. So our brains are always trying to re-experience some event because I truly think it's because we try to gain safety and control, because I feel worry is just a format of control. Because worry does nothing for us. If you really worry about all sorts of things in life and what's going to happen next and what's going on now, worry. First of all, it really clogs up the throat chakra, and cleaning that out so we can reduce the worry. But what is worry doing? Is it going to help that situation improve? No, it's just a format of control that I call it control that the mind does, because we think if we worry hard enough, if we congest our ajna chakra, we congest our throat chakra enough, that somehow we will change this event. If I worry enough, then maybe something good will happen. But actually it's the opposite. You're going to bring more worry and make that thought form much larger till it really engulfs you. Then we got to clean that out. So
yeah. It's really like the fragmentation. It's like when you're just judging or not happy with something from the past. That's where you get really hung up because it's not surrendering to what is and like wishing it had been different versus, well, what could if I showed up right now, what could I change and bring into my life versus obsessing that X, Y, or Z happened or didn't happen. If you're obsessing and always in the past like that, you're not showing up for the present. Like the analogy that I loved recently is that you cannot power the boat with the wake. You can only power the boat from the moment, rowing or motor or whatever the case is. You can't power the boat with the future either. It's only in the boat making the choice of how to move forward that actually gives you good orderly direction.
Yeah, and I love what you said about surrender to what is. That's the only place you can navigate from. That's the best place you can navigate from. Surrender to what is. Karen says gratitude. Yeah, surrender to what is. There's a lesson in it. There's a bless in the mess. And when you surrender, your nervous system calms down. And from there, you are in a place for being a bigger receptacle for something good to come in.
Yeah.
And that's challenging for us to just surrender because the mind wants control. We want to feel like we in control. All has to do with familiarity of we try to grasp a previous experience where we can navigate from. So it's trying to like get steady in the boat when let the boat carry you sometimes. Just surrender.
No, my one teacher at fellowships, Elaine, she would always say, "Link, don't think." If you're in your head, then whether you might be in the future or the past, but if you're in your head, you're not in the space where you're going to be getting the inspirations, like dropping into that heart space, dropping into the body and touching with that divine spark within. That's where you're linking and you can get these inspirations. And then the more work you do to refine your shadow, to lessen those imprints, to navigate that, there's less distortion as those inspirations come through because you cannot not be connected. That it's a question of cleaning up that tunnel where the information's coming through. And I think like thinking about like boulders, you're heaving those boulders, you're getting rid of them so that when you do go into that heart space, there's less and less distortion that pollutes or dilutes what you're getting from spirit.
Yeah, nervous system dysregulation. Anytime we get into fear, we go back to some previous event, and then you can't hear what you don't have clarity, and so you don't remember that Uncle Mike offered, "Hey, call me anytime you need something." You don't even hear that, and you don't remember that because you're in such a state of dysregulation and distortion that you can't have the clarity. The good it's trying to come in, but you don't hear it because you're running in your own little hurricane in your mind. So calming the nervous system down, getting more in the heart space, no matter what the situation is, and you'll be able to go, oh, wait a minute, I could do this. Like a silly example of this is this has happened multiple times with my pets. Sometimes they like I was outside and I can't find my one cat. And I'm like, where? And they're not outdoor cats, right? So I'm like, where is my cat? And I go into massive panic. And I always remember, I'm like, I cannot find them and I cannot send them the message to them for them to get back here because I'm in a panic. So literally it works every time. I stand there, I close my eyes, I put my tongue to the roof of the mouth, I take a few deep breaths and I say the cat's name. I'm like, let's get back home because it's getting dark or it is dark. And sure enough, within 15 to 20 minutes, always they come back because I'm not in a dysregulated state. So it's you bring yourself back to a calm space, calming down the nervous system so that you can hear or get the clarity for the next steps.
Yeah, and two comments from our one of the Instagram folks saying that about with the same thing with the art tutor, that they never let them get the better of them and they held his gaze with compassion, which is the reason I'm bringing that up is like when you do have somebody come up that you could be in judgment of, switching it to a thing of compassion, and then also where can I give myself compassion where I'm doing the same thing. And then the other one that I love what they wrote is I always say it's not about happiness, it's about wholeness.
I love that too. Love both of those.
Yeah, because like wherever you're in resistance to something, because they say what you resist persists, it's kind of like you're almost inviting it in more.
You are.
Yeah, because energy flows where your attention goes. So it builds up and builds up and builds up until that wall breaks down or whatnot. And you're going to become whole whether you like it or not. But the more conscious you can be about it, the more ease you can have around it. Because if you create unconsciously, then things become emergent, and then you have
Yes.
emergencies. But if you can consciously do it, then things are still going to come up, but you're going to have more of a grace and an ease with navigating it.
Yeah, and energy. Another little mantra that I heard is energy loves attention. So it's like a little child, and the more attention you give it, the bigger it grows. So whatever thing that is that's not so great, if you keep giving it attention, it's going to hang out. If you stop focusing on it so much, it's going to drop off. It's going to stop throwing its temper tantrum. And so if you're worrying, fearing about a situation, and you keep giving that situation attention, it's like a little kid that's just going to keep throwing a temper tantrum versus walking away. And then that trigger doesn't pop up as much because you've stopped giving it attention. So starving it. And I love that. Everybody's got a God spark in them. Every single person, no matter what they are right now, they could be the most evil person ever. If you could see that one tiny, even needle nose thread of goodness and compassion in that person, you are on the road to shifting the whole situation. And that's really, really good. So thank you for that.
Yeah. And one analogy I love to kind of illustrate the God spark in everybody is like the ocean. We're all a wave on the ocean. You have your individuality, you have your motion, you have your destination, but you're all still part of the ocean, yet we're all just waving together and, washing up on each other's shores and causing different experiences. And you may be the villain in somebody else's story for them to be able to have a certain experience. Neil wrote this amazing book. It's a kid's book called Little Soul in the Sun, where this little spark soul wants so badly to know something experientially, because in that realm it's all just conceptual, because it's everything. You are everything, so there's nothing other than you. So then you have to forget in order to have the experience. Well, in order to experience this one thing, someone's got to do this other thing, and someone says, I'll do that for you. And it's kind of like the sacred game of being able to create these experiences, so we really have this knowing of who we are choosing to be and becoming.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, lots of little golden nuggets. Have compassion for others, and that's really challenging for a lot of people, especially if somebody's caused you trauma. Then it gets really tricky. But just not try. Just make a small effort.
Yeah, and Magic Mike was referencing with the lost stuff that works for things like keys things to lose things. And then Karen was offering like St. Anthony. I don't know much about the saints, but I know St. Anthony is the one to do for losing things. And then there's also one for selling houses that we could probably do a whole, actually, I know someone I could do a stream with about saints, possibly. So maybe if people are interested in saint magic, we'll call it, or saint workings. And I don't know if we can use magic and saints in the same sentence, but maybe that would be a possibility to do in the future.
Yep, I know a lot about saints too. Saint invoking the great ones and the holy ones, who put invocation of the great ones and the holy ones for help. There's a lot of beings out there that are there to help you, so you're never alone, and they're always trying to help you. But again, and I've been there too sometimes, like, oh, help me, but you're in a chaotic state, so you can't hear what they're trying to say. So getting into that, working on getting into that peaceful state of calming down the nervous system, being in a space of peace. And there's various tools we can teach to do that. That's something I do with people all the time. Yeah, there's lots of tools you can use in the moment to get yourself back, that don't take hours and hours, that get you back in that calm space. And you're going to get there a whole lot faster. And when you can get there really fast, then you can start to have total clarity on the situation.
Yeah, and we both have different tools for that. The one that you can have on this stream is all you have to do is breathe. Remember to breathe. The breath is going to bring you back a little bit, but there's so many deeper dives that you can do with different processes and meditations and everything. Maybe we should hold a workshop and give a few little tidbits here and there. Which also reminds me, on a completely separate note, Zane also does a detox. We should talk offline and see if there might be a collaboration between you, Zane, and me to do some sort of whole being detox thing.
Good.
Because he has a detox thing coming up too, but anyway, he's not he doesn't have the same background. So I had thrown out to him already that maybe we could consider that, and we should all talk.
That sounds good. Yeah, because the body needs to be you detox the emotions. So I ran actually every year I run a physical detox. So I send somebody a kit. We do Zooms. We walk everybody through it. This year I did a physical and emotional detox, but I said that was going to be the last time I was going to run it. So it was a 4-week process where you get a kit to clean out your system. It's a really great, gentle detox. Walk you through the diet and all that sort of thing. And then last week we did an emotional detox, because they do go hand in hand. When your emotions are too high, then your stomach isn't going to work well. Then your hydrochloric acid production, we're getting medical, but hydrochloric acid production is not good. Then you're not digesting your food, and then everything down the line gets all screwed up. And when you have a lot of anger, that affects the liver. So your liver is the head honcho, so is your stomach. If those two organs are not working well, then nothing else in your body is going to work. And they are heavily affected by emotions. So you kind of it's good to do them hand in hand at some point.
Yeah, like Zane's detox thing, it was like the modern shaman's diet, and he's going to be doing a run. I'm not sure exactly when, but there is a very specific diet protocol, like what you have to eat, when you have to eat it, the last meal of the day, first meal of the day, like intermittent fasting type of stuff. And then on top of that, like a whole bunch of supplements and things for various things. So I think it'll be a really interesting conversation, and see if there's a possibility to do some work.
Always open to that.
And then with if you want to throw some sound in there, we have meridians and organ forks and things that could all help those organs come into sympathetic resonance with healthy frequencies. So
bring the whole thing up.
Bring
everything up the levels.
Yeah, I'm really excited about that. So cool. But we're about 51 minutes in. I'm going to say last call for comments or questions if you have anything on your mind. And it doesn't have to be about what we're talking about. It can really be about anything. I really appreciate everybody contributing so much today. Even on Instagram, it's brand new that we're streaming to Instagram. So I'm very excited to have had so much. We had a lot of people in and out, but we've also had a lot of people seeming to stay. The person online says, "Let's take care of you guys. Lots of love from London." Cool. Thank you so much for tuning in from London, and looking forward to future Crystal Skull. And Phil will check out the Goddess Lita. Also, yeah, that's where I get a lot of my skulls. I have like over 100 skulls, so we really could do a lot of stuff. Oh, and on skulls on my YouTube, the Sonic Shaman channel, I have it's 2 parts, but there's a sound bath with Crystal Skull Max, where I also bring up the CK lines to the camera. So if you wanted to have an experience with an attunement for Crystal Skull Max, that would be on my YouTube channel. So
awesome.
Yeah, cool.
Stuff. And if there's any topics of things you'd like us to talk about on anything, we are happy to come together with our experiences to talk about those things.
Yeah.
Hopefully everybody got a little bit of golden nuggets today.
Yeah.
some takeaway. If you want to comment on what your biggest takeaway is today, maybe we need to do that at the end of each session.
And we were going to do that at the beginning too. Like, let us know you're here. Drop a thumbs up in the comments.
Do that today.
We forgot. That's all right. And we may start next week. We had talked about starting earlier, so we may start next week either at 9 or 10, and I just play around with a different time. I don't know about our London friend. They're probably 6 hours ahead, so for them it's like 6, almost dinner time. So, are you frozen? She might be frozen.
Yeah, whatever works best for people. Let us know if you have a comment on that. And 11 o'clock or like 9 or 10 o'clock. Let us know if there's a time that works better for you.
Yeah, we used to do at 11 the whole time because we had a lot of people tuning in from California, and this time we've taken a long break and just trying to pick what time we want to kind of stick with for future. So cool. Yeah. All right. Did you have anything else coming up?
I do have not a request, but I'm putting it out there. I am in search of 20 people that need a healing. There's no charge for the healing. I'm undergoing a certain certification process, so I'm offering at this point healings. If you'd like to make a donation to my nonprofit, which is Simple Acts of Kindness, that's the only thing I ask. Any $5 and up, whatever, just so that there's some value. So if you are interested in getting some imprint release. So I do a process called Parametis. I do a process called pranic healing, where I actually go in and we clean and scoop stuff out that has been lodged in the system. So if you need a physical healing, emotional healing, any of that, I do either of the, or we can do it virtually too. So it works magic virtually. So I'm going to put if you feel so inclined, I'm going to put my email in the comments. Feel free to reach out to me, and we can talk about what you need so I can make my fulfillment. Other than that, I'm still working on membership. So we will have some sort of thing that projects I'm still working on.
You have one person interested right off the front. And then I'm putting up on there, this is Dr. K's Facebook page, One Ripple Effect. And there's the email address, which is drk@onerippleeffect.com for those who are listening on the actual podcast, because I will be, I've been very bad about uploading them, but all of these are going to be available on iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and all the other podcasting things, Amazon Music. What is the other one? I can't think of it, but Spotify, all those things. It's going to be, again, on all the different platforms. So if you want to go and just listen, you'll be able to do that as well. But reach out to Dr. K. And if you want to get master tuning fork frequencies, I have brand new forks that you can get a healing session too. I might be one of your cadavers. That sounds like you Parametis processed me. Yeah, I remember when you Parametis processed me, and I was like a crying wreck in your office. But I got better, and it was a great release.
Make people cry.
Yeah, it did make me cry.
Afterwards, like I had a client that he was just really struggling with relationships, and we did 2 sessions, and he is engaged now, happy. He's just said, he's like, thank you so much for whatever we cleared, because everything in his life has changed, everything. So it does work miracles, and I will go over all of that with you if you do decide that this is something you'd like. Again, there's no charge, but I do ask just for face value of just donating to my nonprofit, Simple Acts of Kindness, any donation $5 and up, just so that there's some exchange of just, I can propel that and help others, because sometimes when it's all free, we don't show up. So there's just a little bit of value, but it can really change. And if things don't, there's a reason. So any kind of physical ailments, if you have arthritis, back pain, I do healings on that. If you just have we do pranic psychotherapy. So if there's just some clearing of emotions that needs to happen that you just cannot, can we have another incident? If you're just stuck and you just can't get out of a cycle, I can do that too. So anything across the board.
I love that the cats were just going crazy. That was
I've never had this happen ever. So I do not know why this is happening today, guys. They obviously have a message. I'm going to think about what that message is and report to you next week.
The message is, do what you want to do and everything will be fine. People will laugh at you, and it's all part of the game and play. So do what you want. And if you haven't figured out, all of our streams, no matter the topic, all really come down to you expressing your unique voice in this world to the highest degree possible. So it's just variations on helping you show up to be you in the best way you can be. Yeah.
Yes. Pulling out your authentic self, because that's what's really important.
But thank you, everyone. We really appreciate you showing up. I'll get my little graphic thing going here. All right. Well, catch you next time, guys. Bye.
Bye.